So in my opinion, the most budget-friendly option in the World Championship Qualifier 2023, aka Duelist Cup May 2023, remains Salamangreat. And you may argue that the new Blackwing structure deck is also a good option, and I would definitely agree with you. I just think that this deck being around for as long as it has means that more people know how to play it, and it's very consistent. Because not a lot of people are on hand traps this format, a lot of people are on board breakers or just playing pure engine like in Tearlaments. Salamangreat can do a lot of work because you do play hand traps like Imperm, Ash Blossom, etc. and that can really slow down your opponent when you go second to stop them from milling 5, for example, Ash Blossoming a Kelbeck, Imperming a Kalos. You can shut down the opponent's engine with enough hand traps in your deck. Now, of course, hand traps aren't free, so that kind of makes it not free to play, but in terms of a core engine, you can buy 3 of the structure deck in the shop for 1500. We'll go over the deck list later. And you can basically build out the framework of this deck and then tech it out with hand traps, which are utilized in other decks, so it's not like you're investing it solely for Salamangreat. Whereas if you build something like Tearlaments, of course you know that that deck is going to get nerfed, and all those points and all those gems that you invested in that deck are going to eventually have to be dismantled, and you're going to likely lose on that because if you crafted something for 30 ultra rares and it gets limited or the deck gets severely hampered on the ban list, now you're going to only get back 10 crafting points for that material. So why is Salamangreat good? Well, like I mentioned, it's a lot of engine and it's a lot of one-card starters. You can see just from this match, if you've been paying attention, how much we've been able to extend and set up our turn 1 board by just having basically 1 or 2 starting cards, because the deck dumps cards from deck to graveyard, brings cards to hand. You can set up a very strong opening field and opening engine just with like 1 or 2 cards in your hand for engine. Combo that with hand traps and you're good to go, and you have Heat Soul for draw power. So we've got an Imperm set as an interruption, an Omni Negate in the Roar, we've got Destruction Protection in the Balinks in the graveyard, we've got Maxi as a hand trap. If we had Ash Blossom too, that would be an automatic recurring with the Sunlight Wolf, and the opponent here realizes that they can't play through our board and just gives up. So this deck can still be a strong option to climb pretty far. You're not going to win every match, but let's go ahead and take a look at the deck list and try to analyze some of the pros and cons. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I've reviewed Salamangreat a number of different times in the past, and the deck list virtually remains the same for the World Championship qualifiers. You got 3 Maxi, 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Flame Buffalo, 3 Foxy, 3 Gazelle, 3 Spinny, 1 of each of the level 4s in Falco, Jack Jaguar, and Fowl, 3 Parallel Exceed, 2 Signet Mining, 1 Sanctuary, 2 Will, 2 Called by the Grave, 3 Circle, 1 Crossout Designate, 2 Infinite Impermanence, 1 Rage, 2 Roar. In the extra deck, you have 1 Mirage Dahlia, 1 Baguska, 3 Balinks, 1 Update Jammer, 3 Sunlight Wolf, 1 Splash Mage, 1 Transcode Talker, 2 Heat Leos, 1 Decode Talker Heat Soul, and 1 Access Code Talker. This is your OTK. When you take a look at what this deck actually is though, in terms of the engine, and you take out all of the hand traps, you are left with something that you basically get for free in the Burning Spirit structure deck that's in the shop. You buy 3 copies of that, and you basically get the core of this engine for free. Again, I've reviewed this before, so I'm not going to go too in depth with it right now, but this is essentially what you get for free. You can craft the Parallel Exceeds and craft the Update Jammer, as these are both commons, but everything else in terms of the ultra rares and the super rares all come in those structure decks. So when you tech out this deck further with the hand traps, don't think of it as, oh, I'm investing this stuff and I'm wasting my ultra rare points. Not at all. Ash Blossom, Maxi, Infinite Impermanence, all of these cards are played in top tier decks, especially when Tearlaments rotates out of the format. These cards are going to come back to prevalence, and they're still somewhat around right now, and these are good investments for the future. So without a doubt, I would not hesitate, and obviously I'm not because I'm playing this deck, in the World Championship Qualifier as a budget option. So where are the weaknesses with this deck? Well, because decks like Floowandereeze and decks that banish are very popular right now, Dimension Shifter, Dimensional Fissure, if your cards are getting banished, it can be very hard to win. You can still go for OTK line, so it's not impossible, but when those banishing decks combine their engine with the banishing factor, that shuts down a lot of decks. Tearlaments with their Grave Shufflers, if you try to activate a Spinny in the graveyard to bring it back to field, they chain a Grave Shuffler and put it back into your deck. Obviously, that's an interruption, prevents you from getting your Spinny on the field. Now, that being said, this deck can still be very resilient. There's still people fighting it out in Diamond and Platinum with Salamangreats and doing a good job. Why? Because you're playing something that's kind of been rotated out of the format right now in hand traps. People are opting to play more board breakers, like Evenly Matched, but you can actually do a lot of work, especially if you go second. You might think, oh, Tearlaments going second, I'm going to lose. Not at all. If you have an Ash Blossom, if you have an Imperm in your opening hand, a Maxi, you can get a lot of resources or stop the opponent from getting a lot of resources and negate their setup. You know, if they normal summon Rhino and try to dump you Ash or Imperm that, that sometimes stops their turn, right? If they dump a Kelbeck off of a Sharon special summon, you can stop the mill 5 off an Ash Blossom, and a mill 5 into the graveyard actually could help you, right? Milling your cards into the graveyard can be positive. Getting a Spinny in there, getting a Foxy, etc. can actually, you know, be used on your turn to bring it back. Maybe the opponent doesn't get a Grave Shuffler in their grave, right? So it's not necessarily the end all. Plus, if you go first, you set up Omni Negate, so you don't have to worry about people playing evenly matched, right? You just negate it with Roar. So they usually try to bait it out with something else, but if you save it and you know when to properly execute, you can definitely play around a lot. So going first, this deck still has a lot of power. You know, going second, let's say the opponent does set up a D-Fissure and normal summons Robina. Well, you know, you have Imperm, you have Ash Blossom. These things aren't common in the format, so you can definitely still hold your own to a certain degree. And the more hand traps you play, like say if you want to play Effect Veiler on top of it, the more disruption and the more effective you'll be, obviously, as the higher up you go. Like, it does suffer, you will suffer a little bit, sorry, because you have to cut back a little bit on your engine in order to play more hand traps. And so therefore, you know, you might not open as much engine, or, you know, you'll struggle to actually extend as much as you want to. But it is Salamangreat, and it is very easy to climb into access code and go OTK for game, especially if you slow down your opponent with the hand traps. So it's definitely a viable deck. It's not top tier by any means, but for the event, if you're looking for a free-to-play option and a future investment, this is a good deck. Before I wrap up this video, I do want to go over one quick thing, and I am putting my money where my mouth is, because fellow Cyberse deck and what is kind of becoming top tier in the OCG right now, with, you know, Bystials and everything already out in the format in OCG, obviously, is Mathmech. And I actually opted to build this deck because it is out in a pack. The major engine card in Mathmech Circular, if you look at how to obtain, you get it in the Singular Strike Overthrow pack, which is a new pack that came to Master Duel in 2023. I went ahead and I cracked open, I think, 6,000-7,000 gems worth of these packs because I was coming up to an expiry on my gift box. So I was like, I might as well craft something. And this is a good option because I already have the Signet Minings, and I can get all of the other ultra rares from the secret pack. So it's virtually going to cost me no ultra rares to craft. Like, look at this. Out of all the engine cards, I just need one more Mathmech Circular. You know, a third Impermanence. This is a staple hand trap. That's a fine craft. Same with the IP and same with the Avermax. These are cards that are staples in any Link deck, more or less, that you can play. So, you know, Mathmech is a very effective option that is basically a better version of Salamangreat because you have much stronger interruptions with the Superfactorial, Laplacian, and Alimbertian. And of course, you still play hand traps, right? So yeah, Mathmech is a good bridge because it's basically a non-free-to-play version of Salamangreat that's better. And like I said, it's a future investment. Bystials are coming to Master Duel, and if it follows the trend with the OCG, it's going to get limited. Magnamut and things like that are not going to come at full power. And, you know, those things do interrupt Mathmech quite a bit, but you can still do a lot of work with this deck. Now, it does suffer from the same things as Salamangreat because you rely on your graveyard, so therefore Grave Shufflers and things like that will shut you down. But going first, you have even stronger interruptions because, again, you can go Silent Conflict for your Omni Negate with a Code Talker. You have Superfactorial for the opponent's turn to send 3 cards off Laplacian, right? You play your hand traps, you play the negates that you can play through Max C. Like, the deck is still very, very strong. So it's a good option and is essentially, like I said, I don't want to say free to play, but, you know, if you have a lot of gems saved up, you can definitely invest in this. If you like the way Salamangreat plays, this is also a viable option. So I'll just quickly run through the deck list and I'll wrap up the video. So I'm opting to go 2 DD Crow, 1 Microcoder, 3 Maxi, 3 Ash Blossom, 2 Sigma, 2 Addition, 2 Subtraction, 1 Multiplication, 3 Diameter, 3 Circular, which I need to craft 1 of still, 3 Exceeds, 3 Signet Mining, 1 Equation, 2 Small World, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 3 Impermanence, 2 Superfactorial, which is questionable, you can probably get away with 1, and 1 Signet Conflict. Why? Because this is searchable off of Microcoder when you link off for a Code Talker monster. In the extra deck, you have Mathmech Final Sigma, you've got Laplacian ×2, Alimbertian ×2, 1 Almirage, which, you know, you don't need to run, 1 Lingaribo, 1 Cyberse Wicked, 1 Update Jammer, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Splash Mage, 1 Transcode, 1 Heat Soul, 1 Avermax, and 1 Access Code. And again, the extra deck, you can play a cheaper version where you don't play Avermax and IP Masquerena. You can get away with just like Access Code and the Prime Mathmech monsters as well. but you can tech this out however you want, and it can be a very, very effective deck. So hopefully this video was helpful in helping you stay free to play or budget friendly and still have some success understanding how to use Salamangreat and budget friendly decks to combat the meta. And yeah, stay tuned for more gameplay, but you can find a lot of Salamangreat matches on my channel if you check out my other videos. But thank you for watching, guys. Quantum is out.